Thank you.
We take the program back to Lagos now. Chamberlain and the crew are waiting for another perspective.
Well, yes, indeed, and we're going to start off from that part about, I think, paragraph 18, where the president was speaking about communal clashes and those who were involved. In fact, if we can just take a look at some of those, there's a particular part where the president spoke on that. Well, we'll have GT Ogunye here with us, a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
So, in that speech, after the president delivered that speech, and he mentioned the reasons why he thinks that communal clashes, those who stoke fire, as it were. And then we have the DSS also coming up and saying they came up with a press release that some persons have been arrested, those who were, certain things were being done about it. So from your impression, you think that both actions, the action of the DSS and the comment by the president, they're connected?
He said that even the devil does not know the thought of man. So I wouldn't know, therefore, whether these two incidents are synchronized. But I know that before now, time and again, the Nigerian officialdom, so to speak, has been quite not comfortable with speeches and actions that they think will stoke ethnic hatred, the embers of ethnic animosity, and, you know, rake up long-settled primordial, antagonisms. And so, either in the legislature, which came by the way of hate speech bill before it was shut down by the outcry of the populace, or by the Ministry of Information decrying how the internet generally and the social media specifically being used to stoke ethnic fire and cause divisions in the country, or to the agents of states who have in the recent past, have had reason to arrest one or two persons in respect of all these allegations. I know that this has been an issue. And so, if, as the Yoruba would say, the witch cried yesterday and the child died today, who doesn't know that it is the witch that cried yesterday, that killed the child that died today, that kind of thing. So, government as a whole, and the president takes executive responsibility for acts of state agents who are in the executive branch of government.
But the thing about that is the release by the DSS is that they've observed with concern the deliberate plots and attempts by some subversive and undemocratic elements to incite or pit one ethnic group against the other by asking, or by stoking, I beg your pardon, the embers of tribal sentiments to cause disaffection and violence across the country. This does not infringe upon the free speech or the right for people to hold
it has serious implications. It has serious implications for Article 19 provision and Section 39 of the Constitution. There are guarantees at the UN level and at our domestic level the right to freedom of speech without letter of hindrance and without intimidation and all that. And so when you see the State Security Service or the government coming out to insist that certain speeches that are guaranteed by the freedom of expression are capable of stoking ethnic hatred and all that. Now, of course, ultimately it will have implications for the free exercise of those rights that are guarantees under our law. Yes, it's true that in our criminal laws, and that was the point that was made when the hate speech bill was being proposed, people contended that it was a surplusage because our criminal law have always provided for incitement, inciting statement, criminal defamation, sedition before it was struck down by the Court of Appeal decision in Otonwako and the state, reported in the 1985 Nigerian Constitutional Law Report 4 and at page 228. Before it was struck down, sedition was also part of our law. And then it's important to know that it's still there. It's not been formally deleted from our laws. You know. So we have such provisions. And importantly, in 2015, Section 24 and 26 of the Terrorism Prevention Act made provisions for using the internet, social media to cause, or anything that had to do with the computer to defame, to do all sorts of things and all that. So it's governed by those provisions. So the laws are there. And therefore, if the laws are there, notionally, you can argue that these laws are to be enforced if state authorities or agents that enforce laws have reasonable suspicion or cogent facts or solid basis to make allegations. They are not the ones to try. We have three arms of government. The judiciary is there. The duty they owe the constitutional laws is that if they have these grounds to proceed, they can effect arrest within the ambit of the law and quickly charge. The other time the SSS detained somebody for almost 2 years under this democracy is totally unacceptable. It's egregious. Preventive detention orders are long gone under the so-called Decree 2 during the military era. And even at that time, that detention order was renewable every 3 months to provide, justification for it. The first instance, 3 months. After that, the expiration, then 3 months. But for the SSS to detain somebody in Nigeria, and then Nigeria then started looking for where the person was. And eventually the person was now produced.
So was there an option of fine attached to it?
The law provides for penalties. Imprisonment or fine or both. So usually...
But that's a different stage.
That's if arrest is effected.
Upon prosecution.
Upon prosecution.
But upon detention, there are rules guarding detention.
Of course, you can't detain somebody beyond 24 or 48 hours.
No, but there are people who have been detained for the past 2 months. The Cadban boss, for instance, has been detained. And
who?
The Cadban, I think that is Ijiwala, has been detained for the past 2 months. And then he has an option of fine, but that's been denied for him. What happens in an instance like that?
I do not have all the facts concerning that, but I presume that the person you're talking about has been sentenced, right? So if there's a prosecution and a conviction, and he's not be able to meet the option of fine given him, then he has to be in prison.
No,
that's different from...
The question is, if there is a sentence, does the sentence also go with a fine?
The law
an option of a fine?
The law says that there is an option of fine. The court, in its wisdom or judgment, may invoke both, may apply both sentence, custodial sentence, as a penalty and fine.
Yes, and I think that's a different level. Yes. But detention and then taking them for prosecution, there are different stages of all of those things. But, I think the point Gaba was trying to make, Gaba Shehu, is that some other countries are doing something to regulate the social media. So he then thinks that what is wrong with us trying to regulate social media?
Yeah, everything is wrong with it.
Yeah, are we supposed to fold our arms and what people deliberately post things on social media and malign people's integrity and do it because under that cover of aliases, they can't be identified?
No. Everything is wrong with regulating the social media in the way the executive is thinking or imagining. Because that may be a shortcut to full-blown despotism. The right to freedom of speech is important.
But not
absolute. As a child, yes, I know, as a child is born, he lets out the first cry. It's intrinsic. Man must talk if he's not dumb. He must express his feelings. When you suppress that, you are denying a very fundamental aspect of that person's humanity.
So you think this release is to suppress people's opinion?
What I'm saying, my view is that our criminal laws have created offenses. If you use the social media to commit those offenses, specifically you can be dealt with. That is different from having a concept of a full-blown regulation of the social media in a way that may affect, indeed, not may, likely to affect the right to freedom of speech. So if offenses are committed, proceed. But you cannot hide under the shibboleth of trying to arrest, detain, prosecute for offenses, and then convict people, and then use that as a canopy to clamp down generally.
Okay.
Let me get your... That's my view.
Let me read this part and let you respond to it. It's still part of the DSS's press release. They say, findings revealed that these unpatriotic actors make unguarded public statements and or use the social media platforms to instill fear in the minds of citizens. These are reflected in the misleading statements and articles being circulated among unsuspecting members of the public. Such inciting materials oftentimes are designed to make or convey false accusation by one group against the other. So in this case now, which agency is responsible to moving into the
That statement, in my view, most unfortunately, is blatantly political. SS should issue statements in tandem with its statutory obligations, because you can easily veer into the political, albeit you are a statutory body that should be fair to everybody and be even-handed. For example, that statement is even prejudicial to the prosecution, possible prosecution of those they claim they've arrested. You've arrested, right? Proceed to court. Stop making this kind of statement to tarnish the image of those people. Yes,
well, should
and
they be letting us
perhaps
know?
preempt, and perhaps preempt a fair adjudication of those cases. You know, I've had reasons in the past say, okay, SSS, what you did, you know, you raid judges and all that. But I'm saying that because such matters are fluid right now. The people who come on the social media, the professor that was kidnapped recently from Ife had an interview with the NTA where he made a categorical statement that those who kidnapped him were of one ethnic stock, right? And that statement was captured and it went viral on the social media. So if you are an SSS and you then think that that statement is capable of inciting ethnic hatred,
Even though it is true.
even though it is true, and you start arresting, there's a problem with that. I'm saying that I understand that the social media can be a force for good and can be a force for disaster. True. Okay? But I'm saying that since we already have our laws governing specific infractions, specific offenses, if you have such cases, effect an arrest within the ambit of the law and then investigate and prosecute.
Okay, we'll come back in a moment. Don't go away. Well, now that we are at this stage and DSS say they made some arrests, should they, when this release came out, should they have also mentioned the names of those people and perhaps what the offense was, so people will be clear as to why they're doing what they're doing?
What was the purpose of that statement? Look, the statement was made by a spokesman, right, of the DSS, which is good. For some time, they didn't have a spokesperson. Yes, we've effected the arrest of so-so person at so-so time, and the allegation against them are so. Investigation has been concluded. We'll charge them to court, and then the Nigerian people and the media will be informed appropriately. Sefini. But the person then pivoted and started making categorical statements about what people are capable of doing and all that. So my fear is that statutory bodies charged with specific responsibilities sometimes, derail from the scope of permissible utterances under their remit or mandate, and then start making statements that are so political, which they ought not to be making. I'm saying this clearly because in the country, there's still people who still say that, we don't want Nigeria to be one, right? That's not a criminal offense. In spite of the fact that our constitution says that, yes, Nigeria is indivisible and all that, there is no law in Nigeria saying that if you express the wish that Nigeria should, or a portion of Nigeria should separate, that's committed a criminal offense.
Isn't that inciting?
Inciting by words when you've not carried out any action that will be tantamount to a treasonable felony or treason.
So words cannot incite? Is that what you're saying?
Words can incite. I'm not saying that words cannot incite. But first, you presume that those who are to be incited are also morons. So those words that are being uttered, are they not being uttered in the public domain?
Something you said
So
earlier.
in the public domain, are we implying that Nigerians are fools or they cannot discern? Even if you are trying to incite them, they know they have a way of even regulating. In the civic populace, there are ways Nigerians regulate other people. Even in the social media, somebody says something egregious, blatantly false, and you see other people descending on him and deprecating him for that kind of thing.
But
sometimes they pull back. Exactly.
Impugning the defendant's integrity.
I'm just saying that we don't need a knee-jerk approach. Ultimately, it's important for government to secure life and property and do things that government should do regarding the welfare and security of the people as charged by the Constitution, in order not to provide a platform for those who may be inclined to give hate speech, to give those hate speech. That's the primary responsibility of government. Once you do that, you take the platform to gravitate towards incitement or spreading hate in a country from those who are ordinarily disposed to causing mischief.
All right, well, I've got at that point, GT Ogunye, legal practitioner. Thank you for your time this morning. And that's the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Osol.
I'm Gimba Omar.
I'm Ayo Makinde.
Thank you for watching. I'm Ogunye Yusuf.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this program are those of the maker and do not reflect the views, opinions, and endorsement of Channels Television.